It is episode number 61 of the Gashouse Gang. Welcome in, everybody. Alongside of Pauley Miklasz, I'm Matt Pauley. Rich has it right with an early comment. Time to party. Party indeed. Bernie, good Friday to you. Welcome on. Good to see you as always.
Good to work with you. Anytime I get the chance to do it, Mr. Matt Pauley. And a happy Friday to all of our listeners and watchers.
As always, if you are with us live, it is 12:03 p.m. as we record this on Friday, January 31st. If you're with us live, feel free to leave a comment on whatever social media channel you happen to be watching us on, and we'll try to get to those as we go along. We've got a lot to get to today, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Bernie, I am of the belief still that the Cardinals are going to end up moving Nolan Arenado, that once the Bregman thing gets done, that very shortly thereafter, Nolan Arenado is not going to be a Cardinal. But I leave open the possibility that I'm wrong on that, and this whole thing just doesn't work out the way the Cardinals wanted it to work out. I have the Arenado fatigue, but I've been thinking about this recently because when we talk about him maybe not going, a lot of times we talk about, well, Nolan Gorman's going to be the guy that gets hurt by that because he's not going to have the opportunity to be the everyday third baseman. But the more I think about it, the domino effect on the Thomas Sajasis, the Lucan Bakers, Arenado himself, people in the front office. Like there are so many tentacles that get into this thing where they really do need to move Arenado.
It's interesting because, at this point, there's three possibilities. Not much time remaining on the first possibility, which is trading him before spring training opens, but they could trade him during spring training. Or the third possibility is they open the season and he's there, and maybe they could trade him. A fourth possibility, before the trade deadline if he's having a really good season, whatever. But I agree with you. There's tentacles, and it will affect other players. If I could just do some shameless self-promotion, I did write a column earlier this week over at scoopsnetwork.com about, well, if Arenado comes back, what would be the best case scenario that would make this work, at least for the team? And I covered some areas. So I think it was a pretty good read. I was just talking about a hypothetical situation, but that's not what we're talking about now. I think one guy in the scenario of Arenado staying with the Cardinals, I think the one guy in my mind who would be impacted the most would be Alec Burleson, because if Gorman moves to second base, that means that Brendan Donovan's not going to be the regular second baseman. But the more games that Brendan Donovan would play at second base, they're not going to stop giving at bats, plate appearances to Nolan Arenado. So he would take up a lot of DH time. Even if he plays a lot of second base, he could still serve a lot of time as a DH. And so if you look at Burleson, they don't really want to play him in the outfield. I mean, they will, but they don't really want to play him in the outfield. And if Donovan's playing in left field, Walker, they're fully committed to Walker in right field. The center field's kind of an open puzzle, but Lars Nootbaar is in there somewhere. So Burleson really would not have as much of a window to play in a corner outfield spot. And they're committed to playing Wilson Contreras at first base. Yeah, Contreras could DH, sure. But if Gorman is DHing a lot, that would, in theory, cut down on the number of at-bats Contreras got as a DH. And the more he plays at first base, that's less of an opportunity for Burleson playing first base. That's just the one guy that immediately comes to my mind. And I'm not saying that's the only guy, but that's the one that I would choose.
Yeah, it's everything you said is correct. And there's a domino that falls with everything. If they sit there and say, well, we're going to play Contreras more as the DH to get Burleson in there, well, then you're trying to figure out where Donovan and Gorman go. It doesn't work. And
right.
Look, who doesn't make the roster because of it? There's a chance that Thomas Sajasi doesn't make the team. There's a chance that Lucan Baker doesn't make the team. And I think Baker's bat coming off the bench as a power bat in that spot against lefties. There's value to having him around. There's no guarantee he's going to make the team. There's a bunch of different guys who could be impacted negatively by this.
Yeah, I'm not as much up on Lucan Baker as a lot of people, and it's just a matter of difference of opinion. And I also think if you have a right-handed bad on the bench. I would hope it would be someone who can play a couple different positions, but that's neither here nor there. Your point is correct. That pretty much excludes Luke and Baker for having much of a shot to play this year for the Cardinals. And I think Sajasi doesn't make the team in this scenario. I don't think, unless there's an injury, I don't think he makes the team coming out of spring training. And you know what, Matt? He could probably listen. We're all big fans of his, but it's not like he conquered AAA last year. Some extra time in Memphis can probably serve him well, and we're going to see him in 2025 at the big club. I just don't know when that will be and how much he'll play. But they're not. We know this. They're not going to have him sitting on the bench. He's only going to come up here if he's going to play a lot. So to get back to your original question, which is a great one, I think it really does affect Sajasi quite a bit. It really does, for the reasons that we just specified.
And I'm not trying to go back over everything that we've talked about for the past 2 months, because this play the kids thing and the reset thing doesn't really seem to be happening at the big league level. But right. If that's going to be the narrative, Thomas Sajasi at AAA doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, you got to your point, you have to get him at bats, but if you want to find out what you have, Sajasi should be under that umbrella.
Well, yeah, but the reset's not really a reset. I mean, what the Cardinals are marketing this thing is it only goes so far. I frankly don't even look at it through that lens anymore. Because I don't think they're following through on what they promised, or at least what they pledged to do, and that's especially true if they can't trade Arenado. I mean, how is it a reset when the only guy that's going to get considerably more playing time compared to last year among Cardinals that are returning really will be Jordan Walker, maybe Ivan Herrera to an extent, but it's not like you're going to have these young guys who have never had a chance to play running all around the place. And as at least right now, their starting rotation is spoken for. And I think we'll see Michael McGreevy, sooner than later, maybe coming out of spring training if they move somebody. But they don't even have, at least right now, vacancies in their starting rotation. So no. I'm not sure where the reset is. I know where the reset is. The reset is down in the minor leagues. It's in the player development and minor league infrastructure. And bringing in new people to run all of that. That's the reset. It's really not at the major league level, no matter how many times we all use that word and no matter how many times the Cardinals try to pump up that message. It's just not accurate, or it's certainly not what they conveyed to us what it would be. I think that's accurate.
The last time I talked to John Mozeliak was during winter warm-up weekend, and I very directly asked him, are market forces holding up the Arenado deal? And what that's code for is Alex Bregman holding up the sure. Without me saying Bregman's name, because Mo's not going to comment on a free agent or a player that's out there. So I use the term market forces with him. And he said, yeah, absolutely. That's what's going on. So when I hear things like that, when I continue to hear him being very open about the fact that the Cardinals do intend to trade Arenado, it reaffirms to me that they are very confident that they are going to find a deal for Arenado once the Bregman situation figures itself out. But Bernie, if we're being very honest about things, if they go into the offseason and our first major talking point of the offseason out of the winter meetings was their intention is to trade Arenado, and all of a sudden it's full squad report day and Nolan Arenado's walking into the Cardinals clubhouse in Jupiter, I think that it doesn't look great for Mo either.
No, and I don't know whether he misread the situation. I think that he said that, expressed a great confidence about trading Arenado, I think because he really thought he had a deal in hand with Houston. And maybe, this sounds stupid to say because I know John Mozeliak didn't forget about Arenado's no trade clause. Obviously, he did not. But maybe he got some information that led him to believe, Arenado would go. I think the Cardinals were stunned when Arenado said no to Houston. We know the Astros were stunned. So that kind of made Mo look bad because he put himself out there. And then he sort of doubled down on that. I think he said this at the winter warm-up, that, his top three priorities, trade Arenado, trade Arenado, trade Arenado. That's another thing that if it doesn't happen, look, it's going to make them look bad. There's no doubt about that. If that's your top three priorities, and you go 0 for 3, that's 3 strikes. You're out. And he will be out after the end of the season, but voluntarily.
It is the Gashouse game. We have 2 great sponsors. Our newest sponsor is Game Day Men's Health. But, of course, our original sponsor, Bernie, is our good friends over at Saliga Heating and Cooling.
Yeah, man, but they were with us from the beginning. So that's extra love for Saliga Heating and Cooling. And we got a lot of love in the Miklasz home for Saliga Heating and Cooling. This independent American Standard dealer has been taking care of the Miklaszes for 16 years, and it's been a great experience no matter what we have had to call them about for help. They do all kinds of work, anything you can imagine, residential work, commercial work, all makes and models. And it's not necessarily just confined. Well, it isn't confined to your heating and cooling systems. They do a lot of other things adjacent to that. And they have that great American Standard heating and air conditioning equipment to go along with it. We trust them 100% because they're 100% trustworthy. They've been around since 1927, the same family running this business. They have high standards for honesty, professionalism, knowledge, just the classiness they treat you when they come into your home. So I love their track record. It just tremendous credibility comes with that track record. So I want you to take a look at the Priority Club. Go online. It's a maintenance program. So I'll talk about it again later here in the Gashouse gang. Sorry. But it is really beneficial in so many ways. So if you're interested in the Priority Club, go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com to find out more. Financing options are available, subject to credit approval. But just go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. You can see all the info that's available for you to answer questions that you may have.
Alongside of Bernie Miklasz, I'm Matt Pauley. It's the Gashouse Gang presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling and Game Day Men's Health. A reminder for you, you need to be subscribed to Bernie's YouTube channel at The Bernie Show. He's doing daily videos going deep on single topics. Also, follow us and subscribe to us at KMOX Sports on YouTube. That way you can get a notification every time we go live with the Gashouse Gang. Bernie, I got to thinking about this yesterday because we did the Countdown to Opening Day show yesterday, and I had a long conversation with Randy Flores, who is the Cardinals' assistant GM and director of scouting, who I think has done a very nice job in his role. It's not his fault that the Cardinals sometimes, from a player development standpoint, have not developed the players that he and his team have gone out and drafted. But as I was talking to him yesterday, and we talked a little bit about the dynamics of the front office right now during this transitional period, all I could think was, we spend so much time saying that this is a make or break year for Oliver Marmol. In many ways, it's a make or break year for everybody in the organization. If you're a Randy Flores, you don't know what Chaim Bloom thinks about you. Nobody in the organization really knows. So outside of the guys who have been hired going into this year, the Rob Serfolios, the Larry Days, guys like that, anybody who's been here before, I feel like this has to be a little bit uncomfortable for them.
Yeah, and maybe that's good. It's no disrespect to them, but I think that, when your organization is trying to raise the standards and get a lot better and they want to improve in every way, it's going to make people uncomfortable, people that have been holding jobs for a while. I'm sure it was a really, really uncomfortable time down in the minor leagues, starting with the director of player development who retired, but not just that, all the way down, because new people, new voices, new ideas are coming in, and it's a pretty profound change. At the major league level, though, I'm not sure. It obviously puts pressure on everyone at the major league level. And we don't know who would be the most vulnerable because, again, we know John Mozeliak's leaving, so we don't put him on that list for obvious reasons because it's a one and done for him. But, some of the players are under a lot of pressure to perform or risk that the Cardinals will move on from them. If they bring back, Oli Marmol, I've seen some mistakes made. And listen, I make mistakes, so I'm not taking a shot. But just to make sure we're all on the same page, Oli Marmol's still got 2 years to go in his contract, 25 and 26. And I think he's always going to be under pressure because you have a new director of baseball operations coming in, and we don't know how he views Oli Marmol. We don't know that even if Oli Marmol has a good 25 season, and how do you ever want to define that winning record, get into contention. I don't know. There's a feeling, well, Bloom probably wouldn't fire Marmol if he has a good season. I don't know. And I'm not saying that he will or should. I'm just saying I don't know. And when someone with Chaim Bloom's experience, who knows a lot of people in baseball and has done his homework, and he's very fastidious and all that, he may have his own idea of what the Cardinals need as a manager that may not really have anything to do with Oli Marmol. So I think we can all agree that Oli Marmol is not the only one who's going to be under a lot of scrutiny in 2025, but he probably would be under the most scrutiny, unless I'm missing something, because I've got obviously an open mind to some other suggestions.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I also think from an elsewhere in the front office standpoint, if there was someone that Bloom was very uncomfortable with, they'd probably already be gone. There's been some people who have exited the organization, but there's also going to be a reshuffling of the hierarchy. So the team is going in this year. Previously the way it worked was John Mozeliak was the president of baseball operations. He was the final baseball decision maker. And then Michael Gersh had the general manager title. Well, Gersh got reassigned this offseason, and we'll see if he has a future with the Cardinals beyond Mozeliak's tenure. That seems like a probably not, but I don't like speculating on things like that. Chaim's going to come in. He's going to be the president of baseball operations. At some point in time, whether it's his first year or his second year, they're going to name another general manager. And maybe that is a Randy Flores. Maybe that's a Rob Cerfolio. Maybe they bring somebody in from the outside. But there's kind of an open spot right now that is going to be filled at some point, and that person is going to elevate over others. Yeah,
and it's an interesting time for the Cardinals and their fans and the media. Very interesting time. It's a little bit of it can be confusing at times, but also it's an intriguing time because we're not entirely sure what to expect beyond 2025 from the top on down. So I think better days are ahead, because I think the Cardinals are doing what they absolutely had to do, which is to renovate, rebuild, whatever word you want to use, their minor league infrastructure and player development system. To your point that you said earlier at the top of this question, Randy Flores' drafts have been really good, I think, for the most part. Look, nobody's got about 1,000, not even close. Been pretty good. The problem has been what happens after you draft the players. Randy Flores has nothing to do with how they're developed, and they've had some really, really terrible developmental blunders in recent years. We don't really have to talk about that because we know about them already. Kind of helps to have a catching instructor and an outfield instructor, things like that, So I think change is good, even if it doesn't get fans like all sparked up, because a lot of the fans are just obsessed with the payroll size. But I'm very happy, the fact that they're doing something that should have been done a while back, which is to take care of the foundation, which absolutely is your minor league and player development system.
And just one final thing on this, when it comes to potential changes in the future, I have no doubt that Chaim Bloom has been given the authority by the team for going forward, that if he wants to make a managerial change, he can make a managerial change. If he wants to move on from people in the front office, he can move on. They are going to hand him the keys to this car, and we don't totally know what that's going to look like. But the one thing I would guess a lot of people probably know where they stand with him, because he's been in the organization now for over a year and he's had conversations. That's one of the reasons that I actually think that Marmol, if the Cardinals overachieve a little bit this year, one of the reasons I think Marmol might be in good shape is because I know enough about Chaim. I know a lot about Oli, and I think those two would probably be fairly like-minded in a number of areas, and I think they would work well together.
Yeah, and I think it's a big year for Marmol in this regard too. But again, we're operating in the dark because we don't know what Bloom values most as a manager. But let me just run a scenario by you. What if Chaim Bloom, as he's watching this, has a pretty strong feeling that, wait a minute, we need to go in a different direction in center field. We need to go in a different direction behind home plate as far as who plays the most. What if they are not on the same page in terms of the way Ali Marmol views, say, Michael Sciani, or the way that they're madly in love with Pedro Pajes, pardon my sarcasm, but the greatest catcher apparently since Pudge Rodriguez. So, you just never know what might trigger, if that's the word, Heim Bloom into thinking, well, we got to get somebody in here where we're going to be on the same page. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just thinking about all the different possibilities, because I think, listen, if we're talking about some of the things, is Ali Marmol going to do something to address the offense rather than, stay with, okay, I got to have a great player defensively in center field. I got to have the best catcher defensively behind home plate. Once again, how is it a reset if you're not giving Victor Scott a pretty big opportunity at some point this year? Or if you're not having Ivan Herrera behind the plate a ton of times to work on the flaws that he must correct? The only way you're going to get better is to play. So that's where this whole reset thing, I hate the word, I wish I could use another one, comes in. Is it a reset? If maybe the manager doesn't fully go along with maybe what management hopes he'll do, because despite what people say, Ali Marmol is not a puppet. He has independent views of things, and he and John Mozeliak absolutely disagree on some matters. And I get so tired of these smears of Ali Marmol about, well, he's just a puppet. It's unfair, and it's also inaccurate. I defend Marmol on the things that I think he should be defended on. But when I do that, people always, like somebody told me in my YouTube channel, is, why do you keep pushing for him to stay? Now, pushing for him to stay, I don't have a horse in the race. Mm-hmm. I don't hire and fire people. Okay. But yeah, I'm also going to try to evaluate anybody who's doing a job fairly, the good and the bad. Talk about both things, because it's not all bad.
It's the Gashouse Gang. We are presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, and also by Game Day Men's Health. Alongside of Pauley Miklasz, I'm Matt Pauley. We appreciate you being with us, whether you're watching us live, watching the archive, listening to the radio version, whatever it might be. Glad that you are with us today. I have to do my disclaimer here before we get into this, Bernie. If you are hurt and offended because the Rams left St. Louis and you have put the NFL in your past, I'm not mad at you. That's totally okay. It's totally legitimate. You can feel that way. That's fine. If you don't feel that way, that's totally fine as well. And Bernie, we have learned that a lot of people in St. Louis do not feel that way. Dan Caesar, sports media guy over at the Post-Dispatch and STL Today, he wrote a column that looked at the 25, actually looked at just the most watched TV programs in the St. Louis market. And it's beyond sports. It's just the most watched programs. And the top 25 most watched TV programs in the market for 2024 involved the NFL, and 17 of those involved the Kansas City Chiefs. It is remarkable, the TV ratings that Chiefs-related programming gets in St. Louis.
Well, St. Louis has always been a very underrated football town, NFL town. They had NFL. We had two NFL teams for a total of 49 years, and there were only 16 winning seasons out of 49. But St. Louis supported the teams very, very well. And the irony here is that people that want to bark on social media all the time, the outrage farmers on Twitter, they keep saying, nobody cares about the NFL. Nobody cares about the NFL. All they're doing is actually validating the impression. They don't realize they're not smart enough. All they're doing is validating this view nationally that, well, St. Louis is a baseball town. It's really not much of an NFL town. So when they say that nobody cares, nobody cares, nobody cares, nobody cares, they're basically telling the critics of St. Louis as a football town, it's like, well, yeah, see, look at all the people saying nobody cares. Yeah, see, it's just not a football town. So I wish people would try to be a little smarter when they choose their topics for outrage. I know I know you have to get a lot of views, you got to get followers and all that, but just try to be a little more discerning. I'm not surprised that people are watching the Kansas City Chiefs. I pay too much attention to the outrage merchants who would have us to believe that nobody cares about the Chiefs or the football, or the Chiefs are evil, or whatever it is. TV viewing is really a really good barometer of especially a situation like this where there's not a team in the market. And the people have spoken, and they have been speaking in their viewing habits for a long time. There's a lot of interest in the Chiefs, in St. Louis. But once again, for the outrage merchants, what they fail to realize, it isn't that St. Louis is now loyal to the Chiefs, loyal to Kansas City. It's a lot of it has to do with, this has been by far the best team in the National Football League since Mahomes became the starting quarterback in 2018. They're the only team in NFL history to make the Super Bowl 5 times in 6 years. They have a great coach. They have a great quarterback. They have a great defensive coordinator, great tight end, Hall of Famers everywhere. It's just like, I think Tom Ackerman said this earlier this week, it's just like St. Louis TV ratings for the NBA and NBA finals were through the roof. They were astronomical when Michael Jordan was leading the Bulls to all those championships. It wasn't that they were Chicago Bulls fans. They were attracted by just the magnificence of that Bulls team led by Michael Jordan. It wasn't that they were loyal to Chicago. It was just that they loved watching Michael Jordan. I think a lot of people in St. Louis just loved watching the Chiefs. They loved watching one of the great quarterbacks in the history of the league, and so on and so forth. So I just think we shouldn't oversimplify this. I think the appeal of the Chiefs has to do with the Chiefs' current greatness.
I do think, though, Bernie, that, look, if you walk around St. Louis, you see a lot of Chiefs gear. I walk into a Costco on a Sunday afternoon before or after a Chiefs kickoff, and I feel like every person in there is wearing Chiefs gear. So now, do those people put those things away when the Chiefs downturn eventually happens? Perhaps. I've told stories before about me and my dad and how we would watch the Rams every single Sunday afternoon. The other day I saw him, and he walks in wearing a Chiefs hat, and it was kind of jarring to me, to be perfectly honest with you. Dad, what you're wearing a Chiefs hat? What's going on here? But I mean, there's a lot of that right now, and it will be interesting to see as this plays out. How much is it St. Louis becoming a Chiefs town, and how much of it football fans in St. Louis are just right now going along for the ride that is the greatness that is the current Kansas City Chiefs?
What bothers me, and I'll be quick on this one because I always talk about it, it's like no one should tell me or anybody else what they should watch or not watch. It's your home, it's your TV set, it's your streaming service. You watch whatever the hell you want to watch. All these people trying to shame other fans, they're ridiculous. Go away. No, you don't have an opinion. You're not entitled to an opinion about what I should do and other St. Louisans should do. You do what you want to do. Leave us alone. That's my feeling on this. I like to watch the Chiefs. I also like to watch the Baltimore Ravens. I like to watch now the Washington Commanders, a team that I covered a lot in my early career in the Baltimore, D.C. area. I like sort of having a menu. It's like every week, it's like, well, I'm not really committed to one team. I want to watch the stuff that's most interesting to me. So I'm kind of a surfer in that regard. But yeah, I watch a lot of Chiefs games because this is one of the great teams in the history of the league. And so why wouldn't I want to watch that?
I get frustrated personally when we'll talk a little bit about the Chiefs on Sports Open Line, and invariably I'll get the text messages, "You're the voice of St. Louis at KMOX. What are you doing talking about and the TV rating show?" Like, part of my job is to talk about the things that people care about. And if the TV ratings for the Chiefs are through the roof in St. Louis, that tells me everything that I need to know about the topics I need to be choosing.
I'll be honest with you, and I include myself in this. So I'm not ripping other media. I'm ripping media as a whole in St. Louis, including me. I've done one Chiefs video on my YouTube channel this year. And then, of course, it's like, nobody cares. I'm not going to watch this channel anymore, blah, 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 blah. The outrage merchants, this is what they do. It's their existence. They get off on it. And I think a lot of people in in this market, I let that influence me. And the thing about it is there's a huge body of evidence that tell us that St. Louisans care about watching the Chiefs because they watch the Chiefs and they do it in huge numbers. I let the fake outrage people influence me too much. And I think we as a media group we're all guilty of that to some extent. Um, we can't make every fan happy with our choices and what we choose to talk about. But this idea, like I didn't realize that this was like North Korea. The idea that we are prohibited from ever speaking the name of the Kansas City Chiefs. We are prohibited under the threat of imprisonment of talking a lot about the NFL, the games, the players, the coaches. I didn't realize that we're turning into North Korea here.
Yeah.
Like who the hell do people think they are to tell us what we should talk about and express interest in? It's just absurd. At some point we got to take off the diapers and grow up a little bit.
Couple other things from Dan Caesar's column that I thought was interesting. So top 25 spots are connected to the NFL. Number 26 was the Macy's Day Parade, which is on just about every TV outlet possible. The top rated Cardinals game came in at number 84, and that was the Rickwood game that was on Big Fox broadcast TV. So top rated Cardinals game at number 84, and that was the only Cardinals game to come into the top 100. The top Blues game of 2024 was the Winter Classic on the final day of the year. That came in 529th place. That was beaten by the Battlehawks, who their top game, which was a playoff loss, came in at 399. And for the City SC games that were actually on broadcast TV, not the Apple games, they basically didn't even show up.
Yeah, let me ask your opinion, Matt, because I've talked too much during this segment. What do you make of the Cardinals' low TV ratings? I don't know that it's as simplistic as it seems. What do you think? I'm really interested in your opinion on this.
Yeah, I think a large part of it is the people have been boxed out. Enough people have been boxed out by not everybody having access to what is now FanDuel Sports Network Midwest. I think that plays a role in it. And then just the same as people not showing up to games, people have not turned on the TV. I think also there's this like overwhelming narrative that a lot of Cardinals games are hard to find because occasionally they'll be on a Friday night game or on Apple, or occasionally they'll be a Sunday on Roku or Peacock or whatever it happens to be on. And people, I think, have this feeling that they don't know where to find Cardinals games anymore, despite the fact that 90% of the games of them are going to be on the RSN that they've always been on. So I think it's a few things. I think there's enough people who are boxed out by the lack of having what was Bally plays a large role in it. And then obviously just there's not as much interest. But you know what? Like, I lived in Colorado for a while. The Rockies are terrible and Rockies fans are not very good. I can't tell you how many homes I would walk into at 7:30 at night and the Rockies game would just be on TV because that's just what you do. You just have the baseball game on. And I don't know, in this changing media landscape, Bernie, has that changed a little bit now where it's not just during the baseball season, you just turn, whether it's on the radio or on TV, you just always kind of have that game on?
See, I think that's a big part of it. You call it stratification. There are so many different ways to view what you want to view, and you also don't have to watch things in real time. Like me growing up, you growing up, your father. I mean, past generations or just one generation back. If you wanted to watch a Cardinals game, you either had to watch it live through normal means, or you would have to, try to DVR it or maybe record it on a cassette tape or whatever. You were pretty limited in the time you choose to watch it. And I can only speak for myself. I'm a sports guy. I write and talk about the Cardinals more than anything. I didn't feel like I had to watch Cardinals games live because my wife and I are watching all kinds of different things on streaming. We would rather watch TV together at a certain time at night, and I can always go and watch the Cardinals game later. Now, I don't know how that shows up in the Cardinals ratings, but I'm like a late night viewer of Cardinals baseball. And I just think there's so many different ways you can do that now, but there's just so many choices people have where they can control what they want to watch. And the number of streaming services out there for movies and television and documentaries, it's a staggering amount of great content. It really is. So I think that impacts it a lot. And people right now are down on the team. I don't know how much that affects it. It's got to be a factor, certainly.
We are brought to you by Game Day Men's Health. Bernie, we are also brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling.
And, again, 1927, the Saliga family's owned this continuously. It's an independent American standard heating and air conditioning dealer. But I just wanted to put the emphasis. We've been customers for 16 years. We are also in the Priority Club. And I said I would give you a little more on that. So here I go. If you become a member of the Priority Club, here are some of the advantages. It's a maintenance plan. They come out a couple times a year before the hot season, before the cold season, make sure everything's working right. And the benefits of maintenance like that in the Priority Club include, you get safety because everything's working as it should be. That gives you peace of mind. There's economical benefits because if you have regular maintenance on your equipment, and some of that equipment can be very, very costly, it extends the lifespan of that equipment. And so you don't have to be worried about, all of a sudden I'm going to have this big, huge cost, because your equipment will last much longer this way. And of course, you can trust Saliga Heating and Cooling because they're the greatest. And we love the work that they've done for us, and we trust their honesty to the hill, to the max. So go look at that Priority Club. And then, just again, financing options are available subject to credit approval. Go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com.
Alongside of Bernie Miklasz, I'm Matt Pauley. Just a couple minutes left here in this edition of the Gashouse Game, presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling and Game Day Men's Health. It is game day for St. Louis University Billikens basketball. We had a text chain. We have, all of us Gashouse Game guys have a text chain. We're talking about a couple things. I don't want to go down the path with SLU where all of a sudden I think that this team can go on an incredible run and be an at-large team in the NCAA tournament. That's not happening. That is simply not going to happen. But Bernie, them beating VCU, if they can beat Dayton tonight, that puts them in a good spot in terms of seeding for the conference tournament. At that point, they beat the best teams in the league. That gives you some confidence for the conference tournament. It's just, it feels like SLU basketball matters right now. The game tonight is expected to be a sellout. First time we have said that about a game at Chaffetz Arena in a while. We all know the importance of SLU basketball to the city of St. Louis. That's the place that the who's who of the community shows up for games more than any other place. And at least in the moment, we'll see what happens. At least in the moment, it feels like we're getting a taste of that.
Yeah, I think Josh Hurts has got some momentum going. The interest is rising. The basketball's getting better. The win at VCU or over VCU at home the other night was outstanding. And they can't have a dud tonight against Dayton. They just can't, and I think this is a really big game for SLU, just in kind of the grand scheme of things. Momentum for your program, packing the Chaffetz Center, getting more fans on board, that kind of thing, generating that interest that can take it to the next level. So I look forward to watching this one tonight, and certainly hope the Billikens win.
Yeah, if they win, I think that really puts them on a path to be in a really good spot. But the one thing I'm really worried about with this team, I don't want to break it down too much right now. They continue to have their rotation is small. You're playing 2 games a week. You get to the conference tournament, you're playing 2-3 games in a row. You would love to just find another guy or two. Kellen Thames not playing is impacting this team as well. If there's going to be a downfall to this team, it's going to be the lack of players playing minutes.
Yeah, I was looking at the metrics at KenPom, and real quick, I mean, they don't force a lot of turnovers. They really don't. And non-steal turnovers, they're like 355th in the country, the turnover percentage. The other thing is they allow way, way, way too many offensive rebounds. They rank 338th in the nation on that. And Dayton's strengths kind of coincide with some of those SLU weaknesses. So this is going to be a tough one tonight for the Billikens.
That's Bernie Miklasz. Again, make sure to be subscribed to his YouTube channel at The Bernie Show. He also did a Seeing Red podcast here recently with Will Leach. When those two guys get together, talk Cardinals baseball, it's fantastic. So you need to check that out. For those of you who are maybe watching us on another social media channel other than YouTube, we appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing, but would also encourage you to subscribe to @KMOX Sports on YouTube. And that way, when we go live, you can just get notifications, and that makes sure the comments that you leave always come right to us. So YouTube is probably the best way to go. Bernie, have a wonderful weekend. One more weekend before the Super Bowl, and we'll talk again next Monday.
Looking forward to it on Monday. The whole gang will be there, all 4 of us on Monday. Thank you, Matt.
You bet. That's Pauley Miklasz. I'm Matt Pauley. Thanks to our producer, Drew Young. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday for the Gashouse game presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling and Game Day Men's Health.